I can see you. I can hear you.
I'm just finishing my dinner.
Oh,
I'm not going to lie. I am eating my dinner. Hello, Alexia.
We're not really dressed below, you know.
I know. Me neither.
You just got to show the top half.
I know, I'm wearing pajama bottoms, don't worry.
If I have to stand up, it's going to be a problem for both of you.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Decent Exposure, and the first episode that I'm filming since lockdown. As you can see, I'm here in my house, and joining me from their house, we have the two very talented actresses, Miss Rachel John and the lovely Miss Alexia Khadime. Ladies, how are you?
Good.
How's lockdown been treating you?
He's silent. It's up and down. It's up and down. You know, you try to remain positive where you can, but I think you also have to allow yourself for the days where you just don't feel great. You know, it's a natural feeling.
Rachel, how have you been spending your time?
Well, I'm at home with my mum, actually. So we have been doing all types of things that I never imagined that I'd get this level of quality time. We've committed to walking every day since this started, and he said you can have one form of exercise. We walk for 1 hour every day, and in that hour, like, we haven't got our phones or anything like that, and we've just been talking. Sometimes we talk a lot, sometimes we just observe people, we meet people along the way, and that has really given me something to look forward to first, and secondly, a bit of stability as well. So that's how I've been managing my time. Yeah.
Routine has definitely helped for me.
Yeah.
Routine has been key. And like you, I go for walks with my mum too in the evenings.
Oh.
Well, listen, Rachel, I'll start with you. We met back in 2009 now, when we were in the original UK tour of We Will Rock You. We were both in the ensemble. That was 11 years ago.
Yes.
11 years ago. And I mean, I had the best year on that job. It was so much fun. And then you actually went on to the London company to play the role of Meat. And am I right in saying you were the first and only person of colour to actually play that role?
I believe so. If I'm wrong, somebody tell me, but I believe so, yes, because the breakdown for those years had said white female, and that was that. And I really owe that to Brian. I mean, I even got the cover because of that, because you couldn't even get the cover as Meatloaf at that time. And so, yeah, getting to play that role, I don't think at the time I realised what it was really about, because it was before sort of like social media and all that sort of stuff. But you would get the occasional person stop you and go, oh gosh, I came to the theatre and I saw you as a black woman up there, and it made me feel different about my theatre experience.
And Lexi, you and I met on the original production of Book of Mormon in London.
Yeah, we did. Which feels like ages ago now.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking 7 years ago. But when you joined the cast of Book of Mormon in London, I mean, you'd already made a huge name for yourself, playing some incredible roles. And quite similar to Rachel, you were the first and remain the only person of colour to play the role of Elphaba in Wicked.
Yeah. That was pretty insane. Even the way that was, even the way that all kind of came about, it was very strange, because I didn't even allow it to enter into my mind to think of auditioning for it. It was Pippa Alien who actually said, I want to see you for the role. And in my mind, I was like, well, why? You're not going to cast the black girl in the role. Like, what are we doing? Okay, we're ticking a box in my mind. And it was mad. Getting it was very, wow, this is happening, kind of, you know. But it was special to me, because you're the black girl who then is a representation for other little black girls out there, or black boys out there, to say you can do it too. I received a lot of mail saying, I didn't think that I could be a part of this industry because I couldn't see myself in it. I couldn't see a representation of myself in this industry. But seeing you in this role has opened a door to, and opened my mind to say it could happen. So I am now going to pursue my, studies in musical theatre or whatever I'm doing. It's because I don't know. I mean, like Rachel and I, we were on Lion King together, and
Yes, you were.
And you just don't think that that's a possibility for you. We knew Lion King was an option for us because it had an array of people from different countries all over the world. But other shows weren't a possibility for us in our mind. So it was a big deal. To being the Black girl going into a role that has more of the time been predominantly played by a white female, it's a big deal. We're opening up the door, and so many people in the past, like when I was coming into the industry, had left the industry because work wasn't there. And not even just me as a Black person. When I think about like us, Rach, we know like people who were like Japanese or Chinese in Lion King who have walked away from the business because the jobs aren't there.
But I just remember being in the audience and watching you, because I came a few times, watching you as Elphaba. And I remember how it hit me in the chest, though. I remember that. Even now, I remember that feeling of like, I know it's going to sound weird, but like pride, because obviously I was like, yes, Miguel. Do you know what I mean?
My friend, yeah.
Yeah. But then I also felt scared for you too. I don't know how to explain it. I felt like
the
I
backlash.
wanted to protect you in a way. Yeah. I felt like I didn't want you to receive anything. And maybe that was my own fear about it. I don't know how to explain it, because I felt in equal measures like I'm so proud, and I also want to protect you, because this is something that you're doing that is like you're carving something out that going against the status quo kind of thing that people...
Yeah, there's always backlash that comes with that.
Yeah, that maybe people didn't want to. And I remember having private conversations with other people in the industry, and being really like, I think I've probably come across as being quite, I don't know, mean or horrible about it, the way I spoke about you, because I felt like every sister felt the same thing. Like, don't let her breathe in this, like, let her have it. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but like, let her have it, because she's worked to be here. But I felt that thing in me, like, in equal measure, I felt proud and I felt fearful.
And when you do get negativity for the simple mere color of your skin, it's hard.
I've never said this to you before, but I felt that at the time watching it. It's like the show finished and the curtain came down, and I remember feeling this overwhelming sense of anxiety. And I was like, why am I frightened? Like, the show went and everything went well. I thought you were outstanding. But what hit me was, yeah, this isn't going to be easy for her. Not just the role, but this isn't going to be easy with what's being said. You playing that role meant that I had to take on more of a responsibility too. I don't think I've ever even said that to you. We've been friends for years, and I don't think I've ever said that. But I think there's a lot of black performers who watch someone in a role and know that there's only two of them in the whole company, and we all feel the burden of that thing. Like, we're sending you out there. We know that you're going to be in a company where potentially you're going to be ignored, overlooked. Basic things like your wig department never has a person of color. So if you, by accident leave a comb at home or some sort of hair product, or God forbid your makeup, you're going to go on stage embarrassed because no one can facilitate what you need. For instance, you go physio, you get strapped up. It's not nude. but you're on stage, you know. So there's all of those little things that mean breathing in our jobs, and being the best storyteller that we could possibly be has all these other burdens on top of it. Our health is impacted by that kind of stress. And then it ends up being isolation. You're in the best role ever and you still feel invisible. Like, sorry, I know that wasn't my question, but it's like,
no, but it's true.
I remember what I felt when I sat there, which was an immense sense of responsibility to make sure that you were covered behind your back.
I think also because we've grown up knowing, or grown up being taught to not say anything and to not have a voice through safety of yourself. And if you want to work in the industry, there is fear that is attached to it. So if something did happen, and through my experience, there have been moments where something has happened to me. One that was only just probably, I think it was about 2-3 years ago, where I met a composer who's well known, and I walked into the room with a rehearsal with him, and I was like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you." And I was just introducing, I'm Alexia, and the first thing he said was, "Oh, you don't have an African accent." I swallowed that, and I said nothing, because if I stood up and said something, in my mind, and I know I would have been considered to be rude, aggressive, and those are the things that then get attached also to Black women in particular, being aggressive, you know?
So Lexi, you explained that before getting the role of Elphaba, you didn't even really see the role as an option for you. Would it be a fair comment to say, do you have much faith in the casting system of theatre to give people of colour this sort of opportunity?
There are some casting directors out there who are really pushing and trying to make the change. And even where maybe breakdowns have been probably put out as them wanting maybe a white male or female, whatever, they are pushing the boundaries and saying to their producers, their directors, what about this? Let's just try. So they're pushing for that. If you were to ask me, is there some ways to go? Yeah, there's some ways to go. We have these shows, Hamilton, we have Tina Turner.
We have Lion King, what other, Prince of Egypt. These shows have a lot more minorities than other shows do. But Tina needs Black people because Tina wasn't Asian or white, right? By telling her story. Hamilton spun it on his head and put different ethnicities in it. That's what needs to happen in the West End.
Right.
Prince of Egypt have put different ethnicities in it. That's what needs to happen in the West End. That young people, because there's going to be people coming up after us, can go and see a show and recognize and see themselves on that stage. The little Asian children can say, they're like me. I can do that one day. The little Black kids can, that's me. I can do that one day. And whatever ethnicity you are, it shouldn't be that just because Miss Saigon came along, that now Asian people can be employed. That's not good enough. There was a point where we had quite a few shows that required Black artists, but once they're gone, what do we have? I understand where shows require a specific nationality, right? So let's take Hairspray. You needed a percentage of Black people and you needed a percentage of white people. That makes sense. I get that if the story entails that. But sometimes a lot of these shows that are on are fantasy and they're made up. And why can't we reflect what's in our world today? Why can't we be united? Why does it have to be a battle, or why is it only one of an ethnic background in that show.
I think we have to talk about Hamilton. And Rachel, I saw you in the show, and just incredible. The original Angelica, earning yourself an Olivier Award nomination. Just amazing.
Oh, man. It's crazy, isn't it? A little girl from Hackney. It's crazy. Hasn't trained or anything. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, as we say with Hamilton, it's one of a handful of musicals where the majority of the cast are from a non-white background. I think definitely a lot of the things Lexi was just explained why that's important. My question to you is, why do you think there are such limited number of shows which have this variety of casting?
Two things. First of all, it's a status quo. The way that theatre came, who produced it, who wrote it, the same stories were being told by the same people. And then the same producers were producing the same shows by the same people. So what happened was we made the audience believe that these stories are valid and these other stories are other. So you can have Mary Poppins a million times over. You can have, I don't know, Les Mis a million times. Do you know what I mean? You can have the same stories. Secondly, Black people are not in the room. We're not the writers. We're not producers. I'm not saying we're not writing work, and I'm not saying we're not producing work, but we're not at the table. I don't only want to sit at the table. I want to be at the head of the table. And I want to say that if we're in a society where we are under an empire that went out and colonized a whole heap of places, that means that the empire story is reflected in different faces of different colors. The idea that you'd produce something on TV, it's not just theatre, it's like TV. So the idea that you can make a program like Downton Abbey, and I have nothing against it because I thought it was brilliant and I had a great time. But the idea that you tell people, you tell an audience, you tell millions of people who watch this all over the world, that at this time in the United Kingdom, these are the only people that were here, the dangerous thing to say. Because if Black people were noted to be on these aisles from the 1400s, you can't then make a piece in the 1800s and we're not there. Also, ticket prices means the demographic of people that watch tend to be white and middle class. I went to see Small Island at the National Theatre, for example, which I think is an important piece of work because the empire, Great Britain, is a part of this thing that colonized, used immigrants to come and work in the National Health Service. These are stories that should be told. Amazing piece of work at the National. But I went to see it, I sat there, and there were a handful of us that were Black. And when I looked at it, I was like, that's because Black people can't afford to see this. What we've decided is theatre for the elite. And the elite in this country who can afford to go all the time tend to be white and middle class. And then if the same people that watch are the same people making the decisions, then why would someone believe that writing a Windrush story? There's a massive scandal in this country about Windrush, and no one's written a play about it. People have written plays, but then to get through all those barriers to go watch my piece, no one wants to hear it. That's what I believe. I'm used to going into a theatre and not seeing myself anywhere. Like, I'll say this and I've said it again and I'll probably get in a lot of trouble for saying it, but Hamilton was very diverse on stage. So the most diversity we had in that company was our creatives, the cast, security, and our cleaners. I'm going to be honest with you. But then our local creative team weren't diverse. Our stage management team weren't diverse. Our wigs and wardrobe, just about. So when you start looking at that, then you start going, oh, so as a whole, from the floor up, this is why we still feel like there's not a need for our stories, because if you're making money telling stories, then why are you going to invite us to the table to say anything or offer anything?
So at the moment, girls, I think we can all be in agreement that the world has been flipped upside down with recent events in America. Speaking as a privileged white male, I can see that my eyes in this last week have been well and truly opened. I always thought I was open to the world of racism and being able to recognize it, being that racial slurs or certain derogatory terms. But I've realized how much deeper it goes into our absolute culture and just a systematic racial problem that we have in this country. At the moment, we're seeing a lot of stuff that's happening in the US. We're seeing a lot of police brutality. There's a lot of extreme forms of racism which we're seeing. My question to you guys is, what are acts of racism which happen to you in theatre? We've spoken about a few in theatre, but especially as women living in the UK.
Where do you want us to start? I'm going to try and give it to you in like 5 bullet points because I could be here for 5 years, but it starts from school. It begins when you leave a black home and you walk outside and you go into a school, and then you're a person, let's say you've got personalities like us, we're an extrovert, certain words start getting pinned to you, like aggressive, diva, you're too much, you're too loud, you're outspoken. And then when you're in a class with a girl who's white, who has similar personality, boom, 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 but she isn't getting these words like aggressive, bossy. I probably was a bit mathy when I was younger, but it's been seen through a black lens. So they're watching you like, okay, so because you're black, you are this, as opposed to Rachel has this personality. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So when it starts from school with those microaggressions, what happens is microaggressions become a rucksack of bondage because you just end up collecting all these incidents, and then you want to talk about something and then there's an eye roll like, oh, okay, you don't have to keep talking about that thing. So it starts from school. And if I wasn't in a home like this, and if I wasn't in a church as well that gave me security and identity, then I think maybe I would understand and maybe be out there being as angry as everyone else. For instance, I actively make sure I know what I'm wearing when I go out. If I go out in a tracksuit and I talk like this and I get in a lift, I know there are still women that are non-black women that if I get in a lift and they look at me a certain way, there's fear before anything else. So something about looking at black women, black people, some sort of threat, aggressor, predator, I think that comes through conversations in people's homes. I think that comes through buying newspapers that only cost 10p. I think it comes through unchallenged systems of belief. And then I think, because I've worked corporate before I worked in theatre. So I've dealt with this before and known that people approach me like they're going to have to handle me before they just discuss something with me. And then when you try and explain it to people, they're just like, oh, that wasn't that look and that wasn't that. But you know what you know that you felt and you've experienced. And it isn't a chip on the shoulder thing. It's decades for me. I'm 40 this year, so it's decades of microaggressions that people perceive you a particular way, and I can't undo what you think about me.
It's exactly what Rachel said. When I think back to my first experience of actually being faced with racism, I was 6. What does a 6-year-old have? It's a child, like they're innocent. But I dealt with that, and then going into secondary school, and I dealt with it again. I went to a predominantly white school. I was always the only black child in my class. But even just kind of like going on auditions, me opening my mouth and speaking, and then going, oh, you're quite well spoken. What does that mean? Those mini microaggressions, like Rachel is saying, are the things that make you go, what? It's all, even though it always takes me aback when someone says, oh, you're quite well spoken. You get a breakdown and it says something like, come in your neutral accent we want you to, read for this part. I speak, and then it's, oh, could you speak a bit more? And they're searching for the word, and the magic word is urban. What does that mean? So you put out a breakdown for a Black girl. You told me to speak in my natural accent, but then my accent was too RP for you. So you're now saying for me to speak urban. It's those things. And you're in a room trying to put your best foot forward to get a gig, and you're faced with that. You then have to channel that, put it to the side to execute a good audition. There's so much stuff. And like Rach says, it's not just, you can't depict it to just one moment, because there are so many moments that you've been through, be it that you've been on a job or just an audition, or be it that it just in life, going down the road. There's all these tiny things where people make assumptions about you before you've even said anything. Just like I said earlier, hi, nice to meet you. My name's Alexia. Oh, you don't have an African accent. You made an assumption on me. It knocks you every time. Yet you shouldn't be surprised by it, because it's happened to you your entire life. You sound too soulful. If they're finding a way of saying how you sound. But isn't that the reason why you employed me? Because I'm different? Isn't that the reason why you keep on changing roles, to have someone different in the role? Because it's a different perspective. Everyone can pick up the same script and they'll interpret it differently. That's the beauty of the arts, that you can go back and see the show and love each and every different person's performance, because they bring something different to it. So why am I being judged all of a sudden behind the confined walls of rehearsal as you're to this? There's a lot of stuff. Like Rach said, it's not one thing. It's an accumulation of things.
The one
and
thing
those words
I'm hoping that'll come from this is, I can definitely put my hands up and say I've been witness to moments like this, and I didn't realize their implications, because I saw that moment. I didn't see a lifetime of moments.
I think there's been moments where I'm standing there as the only Black person. I know everybody else there. 6 other people have witnessed this and have been privy to it and haven't asked me anything. Like, I'm your colleague. I'm getting dressed. I'm in a dressing room with you. We're, taking off our clothes at the same time. We're going through rehearsals at the same time. We're going through the show at the same time. And I think being an ally is just opening your eyes, because I'm aware of other injustices. And if I can't say it at the time, I'll take the person to the side and go, listen, I'm just saying, I don't know if that bothered you. I'm not sure if that bothered you, but I saw it and it actually bothered me. And that's what has been missing.
Isn't it? It's the
that's been missing for decades. Because people see it and they just go, maybe it's easier for me to not get involved, or maybe it's just, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, or I don't want to, but I think there's always a moment. If you see me as a colleague, and I think that's the thing. Yes, we're forced to be in a family, but guys, some families are dysfunctional. Like, get over it. We're not all going to get on. But if you see something, I think when you get a chance, call that person to the side, like, Rach, I don't know if it bothered you, but I saw that and it was like, are you all right with that? Because 9 out of 10 times, we have been so programmed to go, my objective right now is just to get through this show. My objective is just to get this micro thing that happens. I will talk about it tonight. Like, I'll call Lex and talk about it. I will talk to my mum about it, because I can't deal with it right now. But I think I expect from the industry and my colleagues to see me. I think we ask ourselves, why are we not reaching out to our Black counterparts and going, yeah, I saw that, or I saw how that director spoke to you. It was a bit weird. That was weird. 9 out of 10 times, if it feels weird in your belly, it felt weird to that person.
There's 2 words at the moment hanging over a lot of white people: white privilege. Why do you think people find it so hard to admit that there is a white privilege?
The definition? I don't know. I'm just going to jump the definition. I saw another documentary the other day where somebody said, well, I can't be privileged. I'm not a millionaire. I don't have caviar. I don't have champagne. I don't, do you know what I mean? People don't roll out a red carpet everywhere I go. And I think what we need to come back to is, what does it mean? What does privilege mean? Privilege talks about the fact that there is a system and it favors one more than the other. I mean, even when you look at America, the poorest white man is more advantaged than the poorest black man. That has always been, because a system was put in place so that when slavery ended, black people were not given money, the means to accumulate wealth. They weren't allowed to read, write, or anything.
Yeah.
Then your judges are white. Your ministers are white. You have pastors that have slaves. So it's privilege is to do with the fact that you don't even have to be rich to be privileged. No. You just have to be in a system where you can benefit from that system in every possible way. And there are other people that live in your same society that laws were put in place, but do not favor them. I think white people are upset because what they hear when they hear white privilege is they hear, I'm doing something against black people. And that's why there is a thing also of white guilt, which is, but I didn't do it. I haven't co-signed on this system that says that black people in America can't get loans and black people have got to live in these impoverished areas and black people can't get good housing and blah, blah, blah. I'm not complicit with that. So how do you mean I'm privileged? And so I understand why white people feel like, don't call me privileged because I'm not, because I'm working 3 jobs. I'm not earning any money. But what the system has to acknowledge is that there were laws put in place that meant that white people would always be able to attain more, because systems were put in place so that even when slavery was abolished, they then introduced the 13th Amendment, which meant you can't be enslaved, but you can go prison. So then you just started to mass incarcerate black men. What are you doing? Stand on the street, go in jail for 50 years. What are you doing? So that's privilege, because the statistics prove that if a white man is apprehended, a white man walked into a church where they were praying and shot black people and was apprehended alive. So when you look at that, the stop and search, we're 3 to 5 times more likely to be stopped and searched in this country. In America, if you're stopped for the same crime as someone, the tail lights out, if you're a white driver and you're a black driver normally winds up dead or with some. So this is privilege. And it isn't about white people now going, well, I just being infuriated with it. Because if it was me, I'd be like, yeah, it's true, I ain't privileged. What are you talking about? But it's understanding your history, and that there's a history both here in the UK, we ain't exempt, and over there, that there were laws put in place that were never for people of colour. And that's privilege. And I fully understand why my white brothers and sisters are like, I'm not privileged. But if you don't have this chat, then you don't really know what privilege is.
We are products of our ancestors, and that's what we need to remember. Like, it has trickled down into us. So not just as black people has trickled down into us, as white people, that's what's trickled down into you. So as much as your parents might not have been, like you say, like the slave masters of my ancestor, at some point that has trickled down into you as a person. And that white people are born into the world privileged and they don't even know it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas a black person, they come into the world and it's don't do this, don't do that. There are these rules that are taught to you from a young age. I even think about myself as like when I'm with my niece, and if we walk into a shop and she's got her hood up, I'm like, take your hood off, because I don't want somebody to label her. It's as simple as that. Like, I mean, I don't know what it's like for like, for say like for you, Patty, like if you've got nieces or nephews, do you know what I mean? Would you think to say to them, take your hood down because of, do you see what I mean? Like, that's what I think.
That's privilege.
It's that kind of thing, like, because you don't want yours to be labeled or sorry.
No, don't apologize at all.
You don't want yours to be labeled or to be judged or to get into trouble or anything like that. for the simple fact of like, because she's got a hood up, that she's been tarnished with a brush, that is not her, you know. And I do it to her all the time. Take your hood off, take your hood off. Like, it's a fear, it's a panic. You're walking in fear every day and you don't even realize it. I could look happy on the outside and skipping, but then I'm walking into a shop and I'm saying, take your hood off, you know, like, don't wear your cap, you know. It's just things like that. You worry.
And I think, oh, don't make me go. And I think when I walk into a theatre, I don't walk in without that. So if my actors and my peers aren't a part of what that is too, and it's met with eye rolls when we want to have conversations or even deal with difficult things, like our industry has been the spearhead of dealing with very difficult conversations about things that society are like frowned upon and maligned and called reprehensible and stuff. And we have been the fourth, like, we've spearheaded things and gone, no, this is what we stand for, you're wrong, we're right. I just keep coming back to the fact that I bring my whole self into a show, all of this anxiety and these fears and all of that. And if you're going to eye roll when I want to talk about what actually hurts me and affects me, then I know I'm invisible to you.
So you don't truly say what's on your heart, and you start backpedaling rather than saying what's on your heart. And you feel like you're saying they don't see you, but at the same time, it's like, you don't care about me. That's literally what it's saying.
Yeah.
It's when comments are made, but that's not now. That was however long ago. But it's like, but I'm still walking in it. Like, just because I can now sit next to you on a bus doesn't mean that it's not happening. Like, it's still happening.
Yeah.
It's painful. It's so painful. I just don't get it. Like, it's something that stirs in me all the time, where I'm just like, why can't we get along as people? I bleed like you. I have feelings like you. I love hard like you. I'm passionate like you, but for some reason you can't look past the fact that my skin is black. I can accept you that your skin is white. And I see you. It's painful. It's so painful.
And that's why these conversations are so important in the safest of spaces. We have to have this in the safest of spaces, because I feel like, and I know Lex feels the same, like I've built up a hardness to do something and survive something, because I know that I have to be hard to not let it affect me all the time. But the George Floyd thing, for me, that was it. I was like, we've been showing you videos forever. We've been talking about our experiences for forever in shows, outside of shows. And no one listened, no one heard us, no one. So we do end up in companies where if there's more than one of us, we end up in corners talking to each other. Then people go, oh, why are all the blacks just in a corner talking to each other all the time? And sometimes there's just solace in your own and not having to explain away something or brush it under the carpet, and to be able to be vulnerable. The fear is real, Patrick. It's real that I will have sons that look like that. And I know I'm going to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to have to say, like, if you're stopped, make sure you say this, like, don't be out here this certain time, because you may be, like, they may have an assumption of guilt before, and there'll be no one to figure out
the truth.
Whether you have got a degree or you're married or you're a minister or you're upstanding. Like, that's privilege. Privilege is saying, for you, the balance is not equal. And I'm saying honestly, for Black people, it was never equal, because we are indigenous people of Africa. And then our ancestors were brought to the Caribbean. The indigenous people of the Caribbean are Arawak Indians. They're Indians. They're not Black people. Like, we're not from there. And the fact that no one teaches that in school, like, this little island colonized everywhere, and this is the
Product.
This is the product of it. We are the product of it. We are the product of chattel slavery. We are the product of the fact that,
Down
for
to
instance,
our
when we,
names, down to our surnames.
yeah, our
It's in our
surnames, I'm a
surnames.
John, like, there's no, that's not a Nigerian name. But even when I go on tour, little things like, I know if I go to Liverpool and other Black actors talk to you, they're like, oh, make sure you go to the Slavery Museum in Liverpool. Like, I spoke to another one of my friends this week. He's a white actor. He's like, Rach, I didn't even know about that. And I was like, yeah, but that's like a Black theatre experience. But why should it be that? I think we need to start teaching world history and say, in the world, these countries did these things. As a result of these things, systems were put in place. They're intentional systems. If you read things like Jim Crow, you read Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch wrote a whole thing about how to subdue the Black man, how to dismantle him, how to pull him down, how to keep him in bondage in his mind. So honestly, Patrick, this thing's deeper than
It's
just
systematic.
You can't live here, you can't go here. Like, people psychoanalyzed this and gave it to white people and told them, this is what you do to the Black man, to the Black woman, to make her feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is about. And just because we're in the UK, I am a legacy of slavery in the United Kingdom. Liverpool was the hub of slavery. And the economic base, our economy is built on slavery. Sugar plantations, it's what it is. And if we don't teach children that, when my mum came here in the 70s, she came as a British citizen, as a member of the Commonwealth, as a member of a colony. She didn't come here as an immigrant. She didn't come here as a foreigner. She was invited to help build the NHS. If we don't teach little children that just because I'm brown and you're white, we're the same, we're all British.
Yeah.
You know, when they came here with Windrush, they came with British passports because the Queen owned the Caribbean. Like, if you don't teach that, then what it means is we're all other. It creates otherness. And we don't leave that baggage when we walk into a theatre and work in an award-winning show. We bring that, because if you come from your village where you've never seen anyone like me, but you've had conversations, you've never had to interact with my food, my dialogue, when we get in the theatre, you don't lose that. It's somewhere here, and it's only broken with relationships, with healing, with wanting to know, wanting to go, should I challenge my system of beliefs or what I presumed about you? What frightens me is that we stop this lockdown and we go back to a theatre where it's business as normal. And I'm not prepared to do that. I don't want to. I don't want to go back to a theatre land where we don't talk about this openly and say, I may not get it, but I will listen to you and I see you. That's all we want, is just to be seen and heard. Because when I put out 8 shows a week, when Lex puts out 8 shows a week, it is no less than my white counterparts. It's no less. But you cannot ignore the pain and the legacy of what's going on. Just be willing to engage in these sorts of dialogue.
Let's have 2 minutes just to catch our breath. So girls, we're at the part of the interview where I usually get decent exposure on whoever I'm interviewing. I normally ask a series of questions, but for today, there's a lot of things which I don't think are quite as relevant or as important to know at the moment. So I've narrowed it down to 2 questions. So individually, Lexi, I'll ask you first. My first question to you is, what is your greatest fear at the moment?
I think my greatest fear is, outside of everything that's happened in recent days, that there's no movement and we go back to business as normal. That's a fear.
My fear is this is a flash in the pan, hashtag being woke bandwagon moment. And we get to this point in 2021, everyone's forgotten and we've made no progress and there's no healing. That's my fear, because we've got an opportunity to move something forward here. And I think if we don't seize it, I'm scared of what will happen next.
And my last question, I normally ask at the end of my interview, what are you most grateful for in life? But Lexi, I'm asking you at the moment, what would be the goal for you to achieve at the moment?
The goal for, I don't know if it's necessarily just for me. I would say as a goal moving forward that we can speak up and be united, that we don't have to walk in fear anymore. The goal is for the equality. It's we are the United Kingdom to actually genuinely be united. And I don't like it's a goal beyond all my other hopes and dreams for my life. It's something bigger than me.
My goal is to feel a sense of peace and unity and healing and love. That's the goal. And I would also dare to say that begins with individual inner work that then becomes a corporate flame, an inferno. So we work on that as individuals, and then collectively we're coming together with some sort of cohesion that is just, imagine a revolution of love, a revolution of peace, a revolution of harmony. What could that do?
Well, girls, I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on my channel, speaking openly and frankly with me and honesty. I really, really appreciate everything you've said to me. It's been incredible, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. I love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.